All right, guys. Hi, welcome back to class. So, what we are doing today is we are going to read a little bit of an excerpt about how Mehmed II took over the city of Constantinople. Now, this goes along with our standard talking about how Mehmed II was important, including the fall of Constantinople and the establishment of the Ottoman Empire. So, what we need to be able to do today is read through the article and we need to answer the questions on page 2. We need to use information from the reading to help us answer the questions. We also need to highlight where we find our answers. All right, so you're going to highlight where you find your answers, and you are going to type your answers in text boxes. The normal, like we've been doing for Dragon Time this week. If you haven't had myself or Mrs. Remind for Dragon Time this week, we're using Cami for Dragon Time as well. Now, for the page where it has the map, the very bottom, okay, there is another small reading. There is a map here, and then you need to answer the 4 questions. Now, when it comes to highlighting the answers in this one, see if you can highlight on the map. Okay, so to do that, you're going to want markup and you're going to want freehand highlighter, and you can just kind of drag it instead of doing it like the text. That way, you can still highlight where you're finding your answers, but you're not having to just highlight in the text. You can do that on the text as well. I just find it easier to use the text highlighter when I can. All right, so I'm going to read the article to you, and I'm also going to read the questions and the map blurb as well. The siege of Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire and one of the most heavily fortified cities in the world, took place in 1453. Sultan Mehmed II, ruler of the Ottoman Turks, led the assault. The city was defended by, at most, 10,000 men. The Turks had between 100,000 and 150,000 men on their side. So the Turks have a lot more men than the people of Constantinople do. The siege lasted for 50 days. The Turks employed various important war tactics in taking over the city. They used huge cannons to destroy the walls. Warships were used to cut the city's sea defense. My apologies. They also used an extensive infantry to engulf the city. So they're using cannons, they're using warships, they're also using a large army to engulf the city, to surround them and make them feel suffocated. After using his heavy artillery to form a breach in the wall, the first attack was launched upon Constantinople on a May morning at 1 a.m. The screams of the men could be heard from miles away. The first attack was led by the Bashi Bazouks. That's just the leaders. They tried to attack the weakest points in the walls. They knew they were outnumbered and outskilled, but they still fought with passion. After fighting for 2 hours, they were called to retreat. The second attack was brought on by the Anatolian Turks from Ishak's army. This army could easily be recognized by their specialized uniforms, so they stood out. Their army was also more organized than the first. They used their cannons to blast through the walls of the city. By using trumpets and other noises, they were able to break the concentration of their opponents. They were the first army to enter the city. The Christians were ready for them as they entered. They were able to massacre or kill much of the army from this attack. This attack was called off at dawn. Before the army was able to gain strength and order, another attack fell upon them. Mehmed's favorite set of troops, called the Janissaries, started to attack. They launched arrows, missiles, bullets, yes, there were early guns at this time, stones, and javelins at the enemy. So a javelin is like a spiked spear. They maintained perfect unity in this attack, unlike the other attempts. This battle at the stockade was a long, tiring battle for the troops of Constantinople. The soldiers fought in hand to hand combat. Someone had to give in, and it was the Christians. The Turks remembered a port called the Kirkaporta, which is just one of the ports to get access into the city. They noticed it had accidentally been left open by the Christians. The Christian army frequently used that gate to try and penetrate the flank of the Turkish army. So they would try to use that port to get into the army and break them up. They stormed the gate. The Christians tried hard to fight to try and stop them before they completely entered the city, but it didn't work so well. While battles were being fought on land, the Turks were also trying to take control of the sea. Many ships were placed in the Golden Horn and off of the Marmoma shore to help siege the city. So they were just getting up right on the shoreline and just trying to get into the city that way. Many of the soldiers came from these ships to aid the army on land. Once the signal was sent, troops flooded off of these ships to take down the harbor walls and start looting the city. The city was now completely taken over by the Turks. Mehmed renamed the city Istanbul. To further glorify the city, he built mosques, which are Muslim churches, palaces, monuments, and a system of aqueducts. The city was now officially claimed for Islam. New rules and regulations came about for the conquered people. The Greeks were to form communities within the empire called millets. The Christians were still allowed to practice their religion, but had to dress in distinguishing attire and could not bear arms. So the Christians, they had to stand out for being Christians and they couldn't carry any weapons. So came the end of the great city of Constantinople. Now, we need to answer the following questions in complete sentences. We also need to highlight our answers in the text. Number 1, what is the main idea of this reading? Number 2, write 2 sentences from the reading which relates to the main topic. Number 3, what group of people assaulted the Byzantine city, Constantinople? Number 4, how did the Sultan Mehmed II and the Muslim Turks break through the city's walls? Number 5, what were the Christians able to do to the attacking Muslim Turks during the second attack? Number 6, describe Sultan Mehmed II's attack on Constantinople with his Janissary troops. Number 7, what year did the Christians lose the city to the Muslim Turks? Number 8, what did the Muslim Turks rename the city of Constantinople? And number 9, why do you think the Turks were able to defeat the Christians at Constantinople? Support your answer using information from the reading. So don't just say why they were able to defeat them. Give me some text evidence. Now, on page 3, we have the map. I'm going to read the blurb. As a result of Mongol incursions, the Seljuk Middle Eastern Empire was weakened and the foundations laid for the later Ottoman Empire. Don't worry about that. Just know that the area was weakened. The Ottomans were able to come up. We'll talk about the Mongols in a couple of units. Around 1300, a Muslim Turkish tribe led by its chieftain Osman started to expand beyond its original border in the Middle East. It became the Ottoman Empire and was ruled by Osman's descendants in unbroken succession through the 1600s, where it became the greatest empire in the world and continued until it was destroyed shortly after World War I. That's a long time. In 1453, at the age of 21, Sultan Mehmed II conquered Constantinople and brought an end to the Byzantine Empire, absorbing it into the Ottoman Empire. Now, the spread of the Ottoman Empire is in gray, so that's the gray part on the map. And we need to answer the following questions. How many continents did the Muslims conquer? Conquer's misspelled, but that's okay. All right, so use the map, highlight where you find your answers on the map. Number 2, what direction did the Ottoman Empire move toward? All right, so what direction are they going? They going north, south, east, west? Number 3, what is the farthest city they've conquered? So, what city that they conquered is the farthest in the gray? So, which one's like the farthest away? And then number 4, how many miles is it from Moscow to Mecca? All right, so for that one, Mecca is here, Moscow is here. Your best bet is to use a pencil or a piece of paper, something that you can measure this and also compare it to the bar here, because this is an estimator. If something is this length on the map, it's about 500 miles. So you want to see how many miles it is from Moscow to Mecca. All right, so you're going to want to use a pencil or something to measure. Do not draw on your keyboard or do not draw on your screen or anything. Just hold it up. Just hold it up right here. All right, and measure it. Okay, or maybe use a Post-it note or a piece of paper that you fold or trim down to be 500 miles, and then you go that way. Okay, now for that one, for highlighting, you could literally just use the freehand highlighter and just draw. Just draw that way. That would work. All right, I'm going to undo that. All right, guys, so that's what you're doing today. When you are done with this assignment, you need to turn it in on Google Classroom. Then you need to work on any missing work you have, whether it's any missing work for math, science, literacy, social studies, related arts. Remember, progress reports go home on Friday. You don't have a lot of time to get your work turned in. And if you have Mrs. Romine, she's not going to take any late work past Friday. All right. If you have it turned in by Friday, she'll grade it for full points. But after Friday, it's just 60s. You need to get your work done and turned in. All right, guys, have a great day. Go on ahead and get to work.